Hello, curious minds. Today, let's talk about heavyweight philosophers creating the top 10 philosophers in history. Just like the list of the most intelligent people in history. This list reflects my opinion, and you can share yours in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's get into the video. In first place, Socrates, the og of ancient Greek philosophy. He wasn't your typical long-bearded philosopher in a temple, but a guy who enjoyed chatting in the streets of Athens. Asking questions that made people ponder life, his thing was the Socratic method. Instead of providing answers, he questioned everything, making people realize they didn't know as much as they thought. Imagine him in a kind of philosophical TED Talk, always prodding people with deep questions. In the end, he irritated some politicians, got accused of corrupting Athenian youth, and disrespecting the city's gods. Instead of fleeing, he chose to face death by drinking hemlock, showing he preferred to die than betray his principles. In second place, Plato, who teamed up with Socrates and became one of the most important philosophers of ancient Greece. He founded a top-notch academy called the Academy of Athens, where intellectuals could exchange ideas about philosophy, science, and more. His most famous concept is that of forms, or ideas. Perfect concepts of real things. He also had this thing with the allegory of the cave, comparing ideas to shadows projected on cave walls. Oh, and Plato wrote some literary stuff, like the Republic, discussing how an ideal society would be. He even had this idea of philosopher kings as rulers. To wrap it up, Plato also had his thoughts on love, like the concept of eros, talking about platonic love more about the pursuit of beauty and wisdom than the love we're familiar with. In third place, Aristotle, the partner of Plato. But they had quite different ideas, a genius in all areas: science, ethics, politics, and even zoology. Seriously, he was the OG scientist. He wasn't a fan of Plato's ideas. For him, ideas weren't separate entities, but part of the real world. Besides, Aristotle had a practical approach, saying ethics is about finding balance, the middle ground, and the guy was the master of logic, developing schemes called syllogisms, rules for arguing and reaching conclusions. A true king of argumentation. Another famous work of his is Politics, discussing different types of governments. He was also kind of a biologist, zoologist, whatever. He studied a bunch of animals and classified everything neatly. In fourth place, Confucius, the original Chinese philosopher. A legend in antiquity, he was all about morality, ethics, and how people should behave to live in harmony. His approach was more practical, no crazy theories, just good advice for a well-lived life. He believed that if everyone followed moral rules and respected their elders, society would be fine. Confucius also emphasized benevolence, advocating for people to be kind and gentle with each other. It was all about cultivating virtues and keeping social relationships positive. Oh, and he was a fan of education, thinking everyone should have the chance to learn and improve, regardless of their background. In fifth place, Kant, the German philosopher who brought a new vibe to the whole scene. He was all about reason and ethics, trying to establish firm rules for people to follow. He created something called deontology, a code of ethics based on duties. He talked about acting according to universal duties, regardless of the consequences, a kind of do the right thing, no matter what happens. Kant also had the idea of the categorical imperative, basically a morality test. If you could apply the rule you were following to everyone, without changing anything, then it was considered a valid moral rule. He also kept it real about reason, saying we construct our own reality through reason. It was kind of a build your own reality, but keep ethics in check. In sixth place, Friedrich Nietzsche, the 19th century German philosopher known for his unique and provocative approach, is like the rock star of philosophy, with his iconic mustache and bold ideas. Nietzsche challenged conventions and left his mark on the history of thought. He was a fierce critic of traditional morality, proclaiming the death of God and encouraging people to live an authentic and vibrant life. His concept of the will to power highlighted the importance of seeking maximum potential in life. Despite his controversial ideas, Nietzsche continues to inspire young minds to question the status quo and embrace the tumultuous journey of existence with courage and passion. In 7th place, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. The intellectual rebel of the 18th century is like the indie thinker of philosophy. He caused a stir by challenging the social norms of his time and advocated the idea that human nature is essentially good. Rousseau believed that society corrupted people, and his work The Social Contract proposed a form of government based on the general will, where everyone participates in decision-making. Additionally, his work Émile laid the groundwork for an education centered on the natural development of the child with an optimistic and somewhat utopian vision. Rousseau is like the visionary idealist who inspires us to rethink social structures and invites us to embrace our most authentic essence. In 8th place, John Locke, the 17th century British philosopher, is like the architect of democratic ideas and the godfather of the right to life, liberty, and property. He was a fervent advocate of the idea that we are all born with a blank mind, like a canvas where experience shapes who we are. His vibe was all about the importance of individual rights and limiting the power of the government. Locke also introduced the idea of a social contract, where people agree to follow rules to protect these rights. So, if you enjoy living your life with freedom and respect for others, you can thank Locke for planting the seeds of these ideas way back. He's basically the DJ of the fundamental rights at the Democracy Party. In 9th place, Karl Marx, the rock star of 19th century political philosophy, is like the guy who questioned everything about society and money with his comrade Engels. Marx released the Communist Manifesto and emphasized that history is basically a class struggle. He criticized capitalism, drawing attention to the inequality and alienation that occur in the game of money. Marx not only pointed out the problems, but also suggested a radical solution, the proletarian revolution, where working people take charge. So, if you've ever found yourself thinking about social injustices, Marx is like the band leader inviting everyone to a sonic and social revolution. In 10th place, St. Augustine, the philosopher and theologian of ancient times, is like the Og of Christian philosophy. He went through ups and downs. From a somewhat wild youth to becoming one of the great thinkers of the Church, Augustine poured his thoughts into his Confessions literally, as he wrote a book called that. Reflecting on his search for meaning and God, he advocated the idea that salvation comes through divine grace, and his ideas greatly influenced Christian thought. If you enjoy pondering life, faith, and human dilemmas, Augustine is like the philosopher who blends deep reflection with a touch of spirituality. That's it, curious minds. Until the next video.